Today is a beautiful Sunday morning and I'm here at this white piece of land here, and on my back is the township of Puchong, one of the most famous towns here in Malaysia. I guess you guys already know that, so we're seeing a lot of buildings and houses right there. But most importantly, we are at this pretty white piece of land because we are going to check out the DJI Mavic Air 2. Now, I've had this drone with me for about a month plus already, but I didn't really get to have a chance to shoot this video because I was a little busy and the weather here is really unpredictable. So today is the best chance for us to take a look at the Mavic Air 2, and we're going to talk a little bit about the improvements over my first generation Mavic Air as well. So let's get the video started. Before we start taking on, let's talk a little bit about specs. The camera is the largest upgrade ever from the first generation Mavic Air. This is a 48 megapixel sensor with a f2.8 aperture and 1/2-inch size sensor. This is a really huge sensor that takes really good pictures, as according to my test, it is way better than a Mavic Air. You can take a look at the comparison video later when we take off. And the one improvement that it has is that it finally allows you to put in ND filters, which comes with it when you purchase the Fly Mode combo of the Mavic Air 2. Now, in terms of its propellers, this is of course different from the Mavic Air 1 also, because these are foldable propellers that makes it way easier to keep if you actually wonder. So you don't have that kind of blocking, you don't kind of have an obstacle when folding up the arms and you gotta meddle with the propellers. This is really way easy to manage this time. And in terms of its flight time, this thing can fly up to 34 minutes. That's DJI's claim, of course. You do get about 27 minutes of flight time in real world situations, and depending on how strong the wind really is. So this is a really much improved battery. It's a 3500 milliamp hour battery, so you just slot in like this. So the Mavic Air 2 uses the new DJI Fly App, just like the Mavic Mini, which DJI says it is a much simpler app and anyone could just learn it pretty quickly when they first start using it. And it also comes with a built-in editor as well. So let's tap the Go Fly and go into the interface here. As you can see, not much of complications over here. There isn't a lot of complicated text that you see on the DJI Go 4 app. This is definitely way better. Now, at the bottom right here, you get access to your ISO and shutter speed settings, which is really good because on the previous DJI Go 4 app, you just got to go to the menu system in order to get to this setting. Otherwise, if you do not want to do a manual image setting, you just tap on the camera button right on the right here and it switches back to auto mode. Now let's take a look at other camera settings. So you get 4 modes when it comes to the photography mode. You get single 48 megapixel, and this smart photography mode is something that I really love if you don't want to meddle with the image settings like the white balance and even like the ISO controls, because this is all automatic. It recognizes the scene intelligently and decides what is the best color that it needs to use. Now let's just go back to the camera settings here. So you also get a automatic exposure bracket. Now this is something really good because it takes photos at different exposure levels. This is really good for night flights if you're not sure what kind of settings that you want to use. Next, let's move on to the video mode. Now the drone's camera can support video recording up to 4K 60 frames per second, which is extremely powerful. And the recent update allows you to do a digital zoom when it is on 4K. That's actually pretty cool. And you get HDR video recording at 4K as well, but it's limited to 30 frames per second. That's actually decent enough if you want to take some nice cinematic scenery shots. And you also get a slow motion, which goes up to 240 frames per second, which is something I can't imagine because I don't really use a drone to shoot slow motion videos, but it's there if you actually need it. And finally, you get your usual modes that is available back on the Mavic Air 1 already, such as quick shot. You get to do things like a drone shot, and finally a time-lapse feature called hyperlapse, which actually takes really nice time-lapse when you are looking at a nice scenery. Now, let's take off and talk about the image quality. While both drone cameras are able to record 4K videos at a very impressive 100 megabit per second bitrate, the Mavic Air 2 totally outperforms its predecessor when it comes to colors and details, which you will find it obvious on faraway objects and the trees. Furthermore, you also feel more confident flying with the Mavic Air 2 as it streams 1080p footage at 30 frames per second using a more reliable OcuSync 2.0 transmission instead of Wi-Fi. Flight distance is also much improved, as I was able to fly up to 700 meters in this area before the signal starts to cut off. In other video recording modes, 4K HDR is very useful if you want to boost dynamic range when shooting against backlight. While the 4K zoom mode gets you a little closer to subjects, you really don't want to use it because it is essentially a digital zoom that degrades image quality. The Mavic Air 2 is a pretty impressive shooter at low light situations considering the camera's sensor size. This video is shot at extremely poor lighting conditions, yet noise levels are surprisingly well under control, although there is obvious loss of detail. So what do you think about the image quality of the DJI Mavic Air 2? It's pretty awesome, right? Personally, I think this is a worthy upgrade over the Mavic Air 1. And if you're thinking to step into aerial photography for the very first time and require a little bit of pro features, the DJI Mavic Air 2 is definitely a great recommendation. Now, this thing will cost you 3,299 ringgit for the standard package, but I recommend that you go for the Fly More combo package, which will cost you 4,299 ringgit. So that's pretty much about a quick review and a quick look at the DJI Mavic Air 2. It's a really awesome drone that I really like it, but don't go away so fast yet because I've actually shot a vlog video entirely on the DJI Mavic Air 2 while on my trip to Sakinchan, and here's how it is.